this webinar on GHR Open Enrollment, a new and wonderful friend. And with that, I give you your presenters today, Ms. Melissa Olson, Ms. Casey Jennings.
Thank you, Keith. Thanks.
Thank you.
So today, Casey and I are just going to go through some of the features and functionality of V11 Benefits Open Enrollment. We're going to kind of try and go back to S3 and compare what you didn't have there and what's out of the box now here that you had to customize. And then give client scenarios of how people are using it and any kind of new functionality they've asked for that we've configured or things that may or may not work for them. So with that, let's go ahead and get started.
All right. So we're going to first talk about setting up open enrollment. So the first thing you need to do is to create your enrollment groups. Your enrollment groups are going to contain the benefits. So you would put in your medical benefit, your wave plan, you group them together. This way, as employees are working through open enrollment, they see the like benefits together. The other one is organization rules, and this kind of sets up all of open enrollment for the organization. And then we move on to the enrollment event. So you're going to set up the enrollment period, when open enrollment should run, 2-week window, 4-week window, and then the enrollment date. So typically that's going to be the first of the year if you have a 1/1 start for your new benefits. And then your enrollment rules. So your rules can be created by group. They can display different costs, so you can do annual or per pay period. We can set up some email automation, some instructions, and then how the plans are going to be displayed.
Yeah, so in the old days, if you're using S3 for benefits enrollment, you didn't really have a lot of options for setting up what your enrollment experience was going to be. You really just had, plans were set up, and then you could kind of number in what order you wanted your enrollment to go through. You could put your dates in, but this is giving you a lot more functionality into exactly what that experience looks like. Casey was talking about email automations that you would have had to do through IPA. You would have had to create flows to trigger emails to notify people whether or not they've done their enrollment or that enrollment has started. So again, a lot of just out of the box functionality, check marks. You can choose it, you can not choose it on what that experience is going to be like.
And then to create the enrollments. So there's a mass create enrollment feature, which you can run, and it's going to create enrollments for the entire organization. You also can individually create enrollments. So if a new hire starts after you've already created the enrollments, you can just manually add that one individual. And then we have the enrollment details. So when you go into open enrollment, you can actually click and view the details by resource.
Nice. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about the employee experience. So you'll go into employee self-service. You'll have the benefits enrollment area. Again, just like if you're using ESS today, you would turn it on based on the time period. So if the date range is December 1st, well, it's generally not this late, but if it's today, enrollment period would be today. Under the benefits enrollment menus, they would see open enrollment. Otherwise, it would not be showing in there. Go along. And another thing on that other side is you can control it by eligibility. So if an employee is not eligible for open enrollment using security, they would not have the open enrollment links during that period when everybody else has. That was something else that was you were able to configure that in S3, but it took a lot of work in creating those groups and assigning those groups to security to say who's allowed to see the enrollment links and who is not. So here we're getting to the actual enrollment itself. You can see there's just clear instructions on how to get through it. And you always know where you are and what you've completed by these checkboxes. So if I've just gone in and I've read the instructions but haven't done anything else, all of these would be blanked out. And when I log out and log back in, I'll see, oh yeah, I've already gone through instructions. I don't have to go through that to get to my current benefits. Or if I've made it all the way down, I've put in my dependents, I've put in my beneficiaries. All I have to do is go into enrollment. I don't have to start all over again and go through all of those pieces. Even when I get into my enrollments and I've selected a plan And that's as far as I've gotten as my health plan, and I haven't gone through dental, I haven't gone through any of my life insurance or disability. When I go back, that plan will still be selected, and I just pick up where I left off. This is a huge win because, again, old days, anytime you left the application, you had to start all over at the beginning. So it's time saver, it's very intuitive. You really don't need to have, while you have instructions here, I don't know that you necessarily need to give them instructions on how to go through it. It's mainly instructions on, you know, where the guides are, certain settings that they may or may not have access to that you would put into your instructions. We also have some functionality to configure the screens to put, as you see here, the intro screen has your own information, client information, and in some screens it will be a little easier to configure notes and putting instructions on them. Others will take a little bit more configuration, but it's totally doable.
Yeah, so. And one of the cool features is under this additional information, you can actually link a plan document. So say you have a benefit guide or a one-pager per benefit plan that you want your employees to be able to look at as they're going through enrollment. You can actually just link that on the enrollment side, and it's going to be a clickable link there for employees.
And that's really nice too, because before, again, they'd have to exit their enrollment, go through the bookmark that would give them the links to their SPDs or links to websites, and then they'd lose their enrollment, they'd have to go back in, or you could have one link that clicks open, but this gives you the flexibility to have more documents or more documents or links than currently.
Yeah.
Okay, so some other things that you're going to get in the V11 Open Enrollment that you don't have today is a review and submit. So in S3, the act of hitting confirm was supposed to be your electronic signature. It's essentially saying, yes, I agree to these benefits, but you didn't really get to review them. Well, you saw a screen, you saw how much it was going to be, and then you could hit submit. You really couldn't go back and change something if you didn't like it. You would have to start your enrollment all over again. And here is text that actually is the authorization. So again, before it was just a confirm button. Here you have, for audit logs purposes, audit purposes, that the person digitally signed their benefits enrollment selections. They will also see a confirmation at the end of everything they have. And if I wanted to have a printed confirmation, I have that option.
Yep, so it's actually right here. You just click on the PDF and it's going to open it up, and then you can either save it to your desktop, you can print it for your reference. One of the cool things is people will go through it and print it and then take it home to their spouse and compare, apples for apples of what their spouse has compared to what they have.
Yeah. Okay, and yes, we covered everything on here.
All right, so now managing open enrollment from the administrator side. So one of the cool things about GHR is they actually give you dashboards, so you can look at the different statuses of open enrollment. So everyone is going to start out in a draft status. So when we create enrollments, that's the first status people are going to be put in. And then as employees start to work their way through enrollments, they're going to move into the started, submitted, and finalized status. And as you can see here, you can view it in the bar graph form. You can view it in a pie chart with some percentages. So this is nice for executives that maybe just want to see how many people have completed open enrollment on day 5. Mm-hmm. So you can very easily just pull these stats for them. And then you can also up here just look at it in like a list view,
which would be easy to export and send to as a report to other people that may not necessarily have access to the benefits administration functionality. Correct?
Yep.
Do we want to go back and talk about if it's the day before enrollment is complete and I still see a big amount of people in submitted, then I can easily contact these people.
Yep, so there's a mass email functionality, so you just right click on one of those statuses and you can do a send an email. So then there's an email template and it will just send to everybody within that status. And that's so kind of a reminder of sort, rather than having to export email addresses and then trying to put it into Outlook. And
then figure out who's completed and who hasn't and do all of that.
Yep.
table, VLOOKUP, pivot table type of thing.
Yep.
And then you're able to create different templates for each of them.
Yes.
So if they're in, started, they get one message versus somebody that's already
Correct.
in a submit pending that you're
Yep.
just waiting for like documentation for dependent or
Yep,
something.
and I've had clients actually, they'll change the verbiage on those emails. So maybe the email that goes out on day 5 as the reminder is a little nicer than the email that's going out the day before open enrollment closes. So they'll go into the templates and kind of change
caps
that.
and red and-
Yep, exclamation points.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the enrollment view from an administrator side. So you can go and you can actually double click on an employee's name to open up what it would look like. And then you can see up here we have the enrollment view in the red box, and that's a cool functionality that's new to GHR because it actually lets you see what the employee is seeing. So it lets you help them in a better way than S3. It was kind of like, all right, well, where are you? Can you send me a
Tell me what it looks
screenshot?
like,
Can
yeah.
you, here you can actually
have to
just,
come over here and sit with
Right.
us and we'll walk you through it. Yeah.
so you just click this and you can actually see what they've elected already. You can see exactly what they're seeing. So it definitely helps with the troubleshooting side of it.
Yeah, that is really great functionality.
And then there are some tasks that you have to take as the administrator. So you can, as we talked about earlier, track enrollments by status. There's this functionality called reevaluate eligibility. And what that does is, say a person is still hired when open enrollment's created and they've started, and then they terminate a week into open enrollment. So you can use this reevaluate eligibility, and it actually will take them out of the draft status or started status because their enrollment is no longer needed. So you can either put them in an inactive status or delete them altogether.
And so then that would also work if somebody moves from a benefit eligible status to benefit ineligible
Correct.
status, is that right?
Yeah.
That's neat, yeah.
Yep.
That's a big thing that clients don't have right now. It's like, okay, we need to constantly report and see what are those transfers, what are those position changes happening, and if they remove out, we need to make sure to take them out of the file before it goes out to the vendors. So
Yep.
having the system take it is really nice.
Yeah. Some other things you can do is change the enrollment period. So maybe someone is hired in the middle of open enrollment, but you still need them to complete it. You can change that enrollment period from everyone else. So you can maybe extend it, or someone has a circumstance where they weren't able to complete open enrollment in the window that was provided.
Okay.
You can manually change it for that one person, rather than the whole group.
Yeah.
So that's nice because you don't have to leave open enrollment open for everybody.
Yeah, because in S3, that's what we would do. We would have like a soft close. So we would tell everybody that it ended on Wednesday when it really ends on Friday. We remove the link.
Yep.
But if somebody needs to go in there, we kind of opened up a link,
Yeah.
and it would have to open for everybody. Or
Right.
yeah. So that is nice to be able to do it for one person.
Yes. And then we talked about the mass email functionality. There's also a mass delete enrollment. So say for some reason open enrollment was created and then something had to change, you don't have to go page by page and delete them. You can actually just do a mass delete and then do another mass create to be able to capture those changes that you had to make.
Okay, great.
So the last piece of open enrollment is finalizing. So employees are able to make changes until their enrollment is finalized. You do have options to finalize immediately if that's something that your company wants to do. For open enrollment, companies typically, I haven't seen clients do that. They usually do a last day, finalize, a mass finalize. And then you can do it by status. So if you only wanted to finalize the people who've submitted because your started and drafts still need to make elections, you can do that. And then, or you can just do a mass finalize for everybody.
Okay, yeah, so the last thing we're going to talk about is, we talked about true open enrollment where everybody goes in and does their elections, but there's a couple of other enrollments. So if you want to get over here, a lot of people are doing passive enrollments if, nothing changes and they just want to allow their employees to take what they had last year. In the old days, in the S3 days, it was pretty comprehensive job to try and get all of those records started for 1/1 and have a stop date for the end of the plan year. There was a lot of manual intervention and uploads that had to happen in those cases. And kind of talk about how passive enrollments, how easy it is to set them up here.
Yeah, so there's actually just a drop down that you can do passive enrollment, and you use the pre-select benefits functionality. So you can have your benefits pre-selected as of what you're currently enrolled in, and then your passive enrollments, you can either enroll with your pre-selected benefits, which is what you currently have, and you don't have to stop your existing benefits. So that passive enrollment's cool. The other feature is the pre-select benefits can be used on its own. So say your company doesn't want to do passive enrollment. You still want everyone to walk through the process, but you want the pre-select option to be available. So all of their benefits that they're currently enrolled in would be selected for them, but they still have to walk through the process to make sure that's what they want.
And confirm it for
Yeah.
it to take place.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it that we have. You know, we wanted to just hit open enrollments today. You know, this isn't really talking about your new hire or your life event, but this encompasses a lot of the same functionality that you'll find in those other types of enrollments. So with that, do we have any questions from anything we went over today?
Do. Thank you, guys. And I'm going to go first. So to select passive enrollment, does it have to be the same set of benefits, or are you able to map an existing set, like say you change insurance carriers, but you have equivalents?
Probably not. So when you change insurance carriers, you do want your employees to choose, because at that point they say, you know, maybe the network of doctors that I used to have with the other has changed, so now maybe I want to use my spouse's benefits instead. So you want to give them that option if a plan changes, usually not with a rate change. Passive usually can go through with a rate change.
Some of us have employee populations that are incredibly unresponsive to open enrollment requests.
This is this is why passive is good, good, but unfortunately every couple of years, right.
All right, here I got a question. In S3, during open enrollment, we have an issue with employees who might be enrolled in family coverage. They drop their spouse, but stay enrolled in family. How does it work in GHR? Is it an out-of-box feature to specify that family coverage needs at least one spouse or at least one child?
It is. So when you set up the options, and we didn't do that because it's not specific to open enrollment, but when you do set up your options, you actually, there's check boxes of which dependents can be enrolled within that option. So if your spouse has to be on a family plan, you would check that, and if they're not,
if they took them out,
right, you'd get a pop-up that say you would need a spouse on to have this option.
Yeah, to even move to the next page. So if you're doing health, you've still selected your family plan. Maybe it is the pre-select, and they try and remove their spouse from that. Then they'll get an error that they need to move into a different tier coverage.